to make today profitable as well. So really quickly for those of you guys just joining us, and especially for those of you guys that were gone yesterday, so Charlotte, Lucy, and Zach, make sure you pay super close attention. What I'm spot checking today for everyone, which I guess for you guys could be tomorrow if you weren't sure of what you were supposed to do. I'm spot checking not only the derivative packet, that was technically supposed to be done tomorrow, but we didn't finish the questions on it, just the odds. Remember, evens are, everybody, extra credit, and they're not technically due until the actual AP, so not until May. And it's on your own initiative to show me the evens if they're not done when I check the entire packet. A few of you guys already got a check plus for the limits one because you had it all done then. But the rest of you, the bonus is still available. You just have to show it to me at some point, which could be a zero period, could be during class when I'm spot checking other things, etc. But remember, we're just checking the odds. And when I check the packet, I'm not just checking that you tried the odds. What else am I checking? That there's work to them, yeah, not just random circles, but also that you graded it, yeah, because all the answer keys are online. And I just gave you guys a new packet, review 3, that's tonight's homework. So that packet will be showing up online by the end of the day. So we're going over the derivatives one, the remaining questions that you have, but I'm also spot checking today the practice exam. What were you responsible for? My ones yesterday, what did I remind you that you're responsible for in the practice exam? Finish it and grade it, but not just finish the multiple choice, also finish. Isn't there an entire exam here? Yep. Good. So at the very end, you also had FRQs, and those needed to be fully attempted as well. Now, I did say that you could, and I actually would say if you could, it probably would have been the best idea to print it out, because then you can get a feel for what the AP exam will look like, how much space you will have. But some of you guys just didn't have a printer, didn't have the space, and I said it's okay if you just used online and you wrote out your work. To write out your work, you should have the multiple choice answers clearly shown with work that was necessary for each of them. And you were supposed to go through this certain time limit so that you could go ahead and say what's the best that you could do. But then also with the FRQs, those needed to be, sorry, computer issues, those needed to be clearly labeled as well as far as which one you were doing. You didn't have to write out the questions, but you did need to show which one you were doing, the A, the B, the C, the work that you have down below. And when you graded it, how could you grade the multiple choice? That one's super easy, right? How could you grade the multiple choice? Yeah, right or wrong, right? Right or wrong. And if you got it wrong, write the right answer. That way you can see it. If you could figure out how to correct it, that's great. But if not, then that's what this next week is for, is figuring out the corrections to what you got wrong, why you got them wrong, you being able to ask questions, etc. And we're not going to finish all of the questions today, I'm sure, as to why you got wrong, what you got wrong, etc. Some of you might need to come in after school or zero period, etc., to ask me a little bit more in depth as to a question that you have that maybe you don't think others had, etc. But your goal is by Saturday to basically figure out, okay, what did I get right? Cool. What did I get wrong that I should have known? Like, what little mistakes did I make? And then focus on, okay, what are the bigger concepts that I'm really weak on, and can I improve on those at all before Saturday? So the multiple choice was pretty easy in the sense of mark wrong and then put the right answer. However, ultimately, is it enough just to be like, oh, D should have been E. Okay, I'm ready for Saturday. No, that's not going to help anybody besides just making you depressed, right? So anyway, you're supposed to be looking deeper. Now, the nice thing is the answer key online did show the right work. However, when it comes to grading FRQs, how could your grade have appeared when you graded your FRQs? What should it look like? It should look like a fraction. It should be a number out of 9, right? Now, if every single one of your FRQs was 0 out of 9, that's scary. Because you should have been able to at least get a point here and there and here and there. But if you are able to get 100 on the multiple choice, you shouldn't be getting zeros on the FRQs.
That's true. But what if you just do
so then coming back.
And give up?
Well, here's the sad thing. If you get 100 on multiple choice, you literally just have half the points. That's a 50%. And to get a 5, you need at least a 65%. So it's not enough.
Oh, well.
It's enough probably for a 3 or 4.
That's pretty good.
It is pretty good. But Tyler, the number of people that are going to get 100% on the multiple choice in this room is, I can almost guarantee, 0. So let's come back to reality. And let's talk about FRQs. So, with FRQs, you should have a fraction of how many points you got out of 9. Now, today, what I want to do is start on the FRQ grading, because some of you might have gotten confused on the FRQ grading. Like, you're like, I didn't know if I got this point right or not. I didn't know what this point was actually for. So that's where we're going to start when we do the practice exam, is how to grade the FRQs and whether you have any questions on grading. Not so much why the answer is what it is, but on grading itself. Then we'll zoom out a little bit and start going over particular questions. I'm going to go ahead and tell you tomorrow, based on the grades that you got with your exam, I'm going to have you guys actually grade it as far as give yourselves a numeric score for the entire exam. I'll show you how to do that tomorrow, and then we will place this exam in a category of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Okay? So that's going to be tomorrow. Today we're going to make sure that you know how to grade it. Does that make sense? All right. So tomorrow you get a number score, what the AP would have given you as far as how you did on this mock exam and where that places you 1, 2, 3, or 4. But right now, derivatives. So people in the front, you understand how the practice exam needs to be tried and graded. So if you don't have it ready for today, that's okay. You can still show me tomorrow. Okay, so for derivatives, guys, just give me one. What's one that we didn't get to yesterday? 17? 15? Oh, we did quickly get to 15. It is on the video, Charlotte, from yesterday, but just real quick, let me help. This is the function f. The function f, to figure out f of a, I'm looking at the y value at a. F prime, I'm looking at the slope at a. And f double prime, I'm looking at concavity. So at a, the f value is 0 because the y value is 0. The slope is negative because the function is decreasing or the actual tangent line is sloped down. The slope is negative. And the concavity, guys, what's the concavity? Positive. The second derivative is positive because the concavity is up. So we have a 0, we have a negative, and we have a positive. So the only way to order that would be the negative one first, so f prime first. The 0 second, so f second. And then the positive third, so f double prime third. Hence why B would be the correct answer. Number 17. That's about what I did in the video, I think. Number 17, we did not go over yesterday. Thanks, David. The table of values above, you guys saw, hopefully in this entire derivative packet, practice exam, there are 4 different ways they can give you information, and usually that can be, words is one of those, and words are almost always included. So it's really like 3 ways. They can give you a table, they can give you a graph, or they can give you a function. It's very rare that they give you words without any of those. I guess that one would be like words with clues that are awkward. Words with awkward clues. They do that sometimes. That could be number 4. So they give you a table, a graph, an equation, or awkward clues that are just kind of disjointed. But there's a purpose for it. So this one's a table. The table of f, so it's an original function. They tell us continuous and differentiable. What's the best estimate of f? What's that say? F prime of 3? F prime of 3. Wait, that's a derivative. Well, I don't have a function, so how do I find a derivative? You don't. But you can do the average rate, which is just a slope around the point. So where's 3? Here's 3. We could do an average slope between 2 and 3. We could do an average slope between 3 and 4, but what might be the better way of approximating? 2 and 4. Because if you have a function, if you go from a point of tangency over here, it's going to automatically be off. From a point of tangency over here, automatically it's going to be off. But if you do the 2 points, maybe it'll be about where the tangent line should be. So the best way to do an approximation of an at x equals 3 is to go around it with the slope. So the slope is going to be y2. So you could think f of 4 minus y1, f of 2. All over 4 minus 2. We're going around 3, trying to find the average slope. You would plug in your y values. And guys, you end up getting 3 minus 4 over 2, negative 1/2. Letter B. What's another question we didn't get to yesterday? Or do any of you have any other questions? Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Any of the FRQs we still have questions on? The odd FRQs? I think there was 1 or 2. D? Okay. F would have exactly 2 solutions. That should kind of make our brains go back to the existence theorems. Is that an IVT, an MVT, a Rolls, an EVT? All of those theorems say there must be at least 1. Now, this one says there must be exactly 2. So we'll get back to that in a second. But question, is this talking about given an original's value, IVT, given an original, its maximums or minimums, EVT, or given an original, its rates or its derivative values? Original with an original. This is IVT. Not talking about derivatives, not talking about rates, not talking about absolute maxes or mins. So this is IVT. IVT says the Y values are going to have to go between, hey, it even used K, which is in our forever card. Y values are going to have to go between, for which F would have exactly 2 solutions. Okay, this one's a little awkward because it said the word solutions. If it doesn't say solutions as in let F of K equal 3, if it doesn't actually give you something, you have to assume that they're talking about the old-fashioned word of solutions, which are the zeros. So that's something that was kind of missing in the information that was given to you. So a solution, it's assumed to be 0 if they don't tell you anything else. So then you have to look at this function and say, okay, 0x cubed plus 2x squared minus 4x plus k.
And you know where it's 0 from the...
Just from the wording solutions, the old-fashioned word solution were the zeros of a function. So if they don't tell you anything else, and you're like, okay, fine, the old-fashioned pre-cal algebra 2 definition. Yeah, for which F would have 2 solutions. So to have 2 solutions, F must go between negative to positive, positive to negative, at least 1, 2, 3 different times. It must have to switch. This is a nasty problem. I don't like it.
Probably the AP from this year then.
Well, no, this wasn't an actual AP. This is a modeled after the AP.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them give one quite this messy before.
Can't you just find the places where it's equal to 0 and plug it in for the x? Like as in using your critical numbers from A?
Critical numbers would do, you guys have already figured out a sign chart. Sign chart when you were doing that.
Negative 2A and 2. And it's negative in the middle, and then positive on the
This is a cubic function. I want you guys to think about cubic functions really quickly. With cubic functions, it could go through 3 times, right? But we don't want that. What else could it do? It could also go through 1 time. We don't want that, just in general. How could it go through exactly 2 times?
If it just kind of grazes it, like a brown would.
This is a positive cubic, so I know it's not flipped the other way. But it is going to have to somehow graze it. That's the only way it can have only 2 solutions or exactly 2 solutions. Now, in order to have exactly 2 solutions, wait a minute, then this 0 must occur at what?
At the 2.
At the critical number, at the 2. So right away, I know that one of the zeros is going to have to be x equals 2. Well, if one of the zeros has to be x equals 2, can't I plug that in?
I think the critical number should be negative 2.
Wait.
Oh, can you guys double check the critical numbers? Sorry, I didn't do it. It's flipped? Okay. Thank you, thank you. Thanks, Charlotte, for catching it, and you guys.
Yeah. Is it really? Yes.
Your signs might have been switched. So then I need x equals 2/3. So if we go ahead and plug that in, 0 equals 2/3 cubed plus 2 times 2/3 squared minus 4 times 2/3 plus k. Do we know what k is? Yeah. Now, be smart. Do you have to take the time to simplify this? No. But you do have to get k alone. So what are you going to do? Yep. So k is equal to, where are we at? Negative 2/3 cubed, negative 2/3 squared, plus, yeah, this is totally legal on an FRQ. Totally legal. Why I don't like this is it's not very calculus-y. This is basically having you guys go back to pre-cal and think about how a cubic goes through. Doesn't even really have you using IVT because it literally was, well, this has to occur at the 2/3, and once you find the K, you're done. So I do apologize in that that was a little bit more pre-calish than I would like. However, it did need calculus because how else would you have known where this minimum occurs without calculus? Technically, for this to hit at 2/3, it will naturally hit somewhere else also. So really, once I solve for the K, I'm done. There is no other version of K or other value. K is going to be number is going to make it hit perfectly right there.
For the solutions, they plugged in 2, and then one of the cases was 8. They had like K equals that simple, and then
It increases, decreases, increases, right? Oh. Does anybody see the other way this could happen? No, it's my bad. I didn't think about the 2 ways. Wouldn't that also have been? That's true. Here's a struggle. Here's what I didn't look at. What's it say? Values. There should be more than one. So one way is that the function could hit at 2/3. The other way is the function could hit at -2. So then you would do this exact same thing except, so you would put a big or. It would be -2. Nope, not -2/3. -2 is being plugged in. It's -2 cubed, -2 squared, -2 times 4. Thanks, Nathan. I didn't even think about rearranging. I was doing find a value of K, not find any of the possible values of K. Ugh, no wonder you guys want to look at FRQ 1D. Anything else? You get discouraged and totally like, oh my goodness, I fail at calculus if we got confused on this one? No. It'd be worth 1, maybe 2 points out of 9 on one FRQ. There are 54 points total FRQs and 54 points total with multiple choice. If you were like, wait a minute, there weren't 54 multiple choice questions, it's because every multiple choice is weighted 1.2. So every multiple choice is weighted or multiplied by 1.2 to get the 54 points multiple choice, and every FRQ, 1 point is worth 1 point. So, yes, we don't want to miss points if we can help it, but it's okay to miss points every now and then if they give us something weird. Does that kind of make sense? But just because D was confusing, does that mean we give up on A, B, and C? No, we get all the points we can. All right, is there anything else in the derivative packets that we've left out? Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you guys to pass those derivative packets straight up. I'm going to spot check them really quickly. And as I do, I want you guys in your groups first to talk about the grading of the FRQs and whether there was anything that was confusing. Let's narrow down, because some of you were able to grade the FRQs pretty well, kind of understand them, etc. And I'm going to get these derivative packets back to you in just a moment. You guys are specifically talking about grading the FRQs. And if you're like, wait, I knew how to grade it. Okay, double check that people knew how to write a number out of 9. And then talk about what got confusing on the FRQs. Ready, set, go. Talking about the FRQs in the practice exam. If your group hasn't done it, oh, yeah, if you did it, then talk about FRQs. And if you didn't, then maybe just start working on the odds on the new packet. So Zach, if you want, you could start working on odds on that, just since you haven't done the FRQs yet.
Okay, I wasn't 100% sure.
All right, kiddos. Tyler just brought up a very good point, so let's talk about this real quick. We're going to probably, by the actual AP, we're going to probably have 9 to 10 of these review packets. No, listen carefully. Could you get like a super cheap folder and just have it be all of our AP exam prep? That wouldn't be a bad idea. But just a super cheap folder, separate work spiral. You can put in practice exams on one side and the reviews on the other side. That'd be a great idea. So if it's something where you're getting disorganized, just get a simple 2-folder or 2-pocket folder, and then just be carrying that around. And you don't even technically need to be bringing your home spiral unless you can use those folders, and then you can have it for your workspace and whatnot too for any problems we do, etc. I do want to talk about practice exam questions, but first, Dave, go ahead.
This AP exam that we started, is this going to be the only one besides the law?
There's going to be another one after that that's required that we're going to work on kind of together after we finish the reviews. And then there's going to be, you guys know how on your shared folder I have that AP exam review folder. I'm going to throw in there all sorts of practice exams that after the reviews are done, you can choose to do another practice exam for extra credit, or 2 or 3 or 5. But that's going to be optional because I'm not going to, well, first, the office ladies don't want to print out that much. And then second of all, some people are going to want to do all the practice exams, and some people really just need to memorize and look at maybe CalcAB videos of him solving. That will help better than them trying to solve on their own. So that's kind of you guys getting to choose. Let's go to the practice exam. I want to go first of all to the FRQs that we talked about. Yeah? Here we go. Okay. Shh, Tyler. Okay. So if you guys want to get ready to give yourselves a numeric score for tomorrow, because we're going to need a numeric score tomorrow on your practice exam. That numeric score, here's how you're going to find it. There are 45 possible multiple choice questions. I know it goes up to like 89 or something. That's for them to separate to make sure that you guys are keeping track in one portion of the exam, then everyone starts over on a new number. And that way, if you did mess up the numbers, you don't mess up the whole exam. There are 45 total multiple choice. Someone real quick, what's 45 times 1.2?
You said 58, right?
54. 54. Except, hold on, maybe it's not 45. 17 and 28. No, that's 45. Times 1.2. I think they round down. They never round up on the AP.
Well, that's good, but okay.
45 times 1.2. Has anybody actually done that? Oh, you guys are so annoying. Okay. There we go.
45 times 1.
Oh, it's actually.
Oh, it is 54.
I rolled for 54. It's 54.
Oh, because 0.2 is 1/5 and 5 goes into 45 evenly. That was dumb on my part. Okay, anyway, coming back. So 54 points are possible on your multiple choice. So you are going to figure out for your practice exam how many multiple choice did you get right times 1.2. That's how many points you got from multiple choice. Does that make sense? So go to the front of your practice test, wherever you did it, and I want you to write down on the front of your practice exam test, here's how you're going to figure out your raw score for tomorrow. The number of multiple choice that are correct, that you got right, times 1.2 plus the number of FRQ points. Not weighted. Those are just times 1 technically. I mean, I can write it. The AP answer grading guideline actually says times 1. It's kind of weird. But you take the number of multiple choice you got right times 1.2 and the number of FRQ points times 1. So some of you are like, well, multiple choice are more important. Well, but every FRQ has 9 of these points, which would be about 8 multiple choice you'd have to get right in order to balance that FRQ. So they're both equally as important in some senses. They both get 54 points each. And remember, to get a 5, we're aiming for about a 65%. So the total number, if you want to think about your percentage of how you're doing, the total number is 108. And here's your score. But we'll see tomorrow the breakdown of the scores as to what category was a 1, a 2, a 3, or 4, or 5. So in order to get this, some of you guys need to figure out how many FRQ points that you got, right? And so we're looking at the FRQs. The multiple choice are easy, right or wrong, in the sense of figuring out how many you got right. But the FRQs, there's some variation. And some of you are like, oh, I want to give myself a point. My advice, be harder on yourself than you want. Does that make sense? Because they don't know you. And even if they did, they have to follow these guidelines of if you make a mistake in a place where you're getting a point. For instance, if you were to, right here, if you were not to write the dx, if you were to write this and not the dx, even if you got this correct answer, they'd have to say, oh, you showed me something. You're not going to get negative points, and they're not going to take off more points than are possible in the problem. But here's the struggle. If you got the answer right and you're integrand, you didn't write the dx, they could take away that point. Well, that's a bummer. Okay, so you have to be careful with how you're showing work. So as you guys are going through and grading your FRQs, you're only looking for these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points. You're only allowed up to 9 points, and you can't give yourselves points for anything above, beyond, extra what's here on the page. Did you guys have any questions as far as how to grade FRQ1? Tyler?
This isn't that, but
Oh, go ahead.
how many multiple choice were there again?
45. 28 non-calculator and 17 calculator. Although that might have changed. I think that changed last year to 30 non-calculator and 15 calculator, just for sake of the timing being less awkward. I think it's an hour and 30 minutes instead of like 55 and 40 something. It's just easier for the timing of people to proctoring. But yeah, still 45 total. All right, cool kids. So did you understand what they were saying about here? Could you lose 5 points on this problem? No. But the idea is if you reverse these two, they would say take away 1 point. So only give 1, take away 1. If there was an error that you forgot the pi, they say just take away 1, but you can give them the other point. So they're being very particular for the graders so they know exactly which mistakes and how to grade it. Does that make sense? Okay. So what? Yeah, you can get up to 3 points. 2 points for having this, the pi, the correct, well, the bounds were actually up here in this point. So the pi and then this orientation of a washer with your big R squared minus little r squared. They would not have taken off the point for reversal if you had put an absolute value. So if you did reverse it, you could have put an absolute value and not been marked wrong. Does that make sense? Anyway, something interesting. But there you go. Yeah.
Like said R, big R is equal to.
And then you wrote big R squared minus little r squared, totally fine. As long as they haven't defined R to be something else. Does that make sense? But that isn't until letter C. No, they did talk about big R, big R.
Yeah.
As long as you defined in your answer big R, you should be okay. But if you wrote a big R without defining it, they might be able to take off a point because that they would have to assume it was their big R, not yours. But theoretically, it should be okay.
Said big R is equal to 1 minus
Good.
e to the negative 3x squared.
That should be okay. That should be okay. Because you've redefined the R. Okay, so no questions remaining on how to grade FRQ1? Okay. Was this one nice? You could use your graphing calculator?
Yes.
But were there still plenty of places that you could have made mistakes? Yeah. FRQ2, any questions on grading this one as far as how to grade the points that you gave, etc.? We're okay? B wasn't, I mean, the velocity was negative for an interval, so you could say position was decreasing. Just be careful of your wording. Velocity negative, so position was decreasing, or velocity positive, position was increasing. But what they were asking for was changes of direction. No, you're okay? FRQ3? You take a picture of it, Tyler, if you need it. You're still grading? Okay. Any questions on grading FRQ3? Are you guys getting a feel for, at least a little bit, how they word their answers? Things like the justification, it's going to be less, this is an approximation, it's going to be less because Riemann sums are over, under based on increasing, decreasing. Tangent lines are over, under based on concavity. I think we might actually make a forever card out of that. That might be helpful. Using things like average value right out of our forever card, right? Average value or average rate. Putting the units, being very specific about the units. FRQ4, any questions about grading? He was nasty, but you can tell from the very beginning you're going to have to somehow use some geometry. I see a semicircle that could be subtracted from a rectangle. I see triangles. Somehow integration area is included. You didn't end up seeing that until right here. Integration is net change. You had to find the integral by finding the areas, making them proper as far as positive, negative, and then you had to add the initial. This is integration is net change if you want to put a label on it or a title on it. Austin?
Do you have like the idea of like how much time is spent on each like?
Well, the FRQs, if you guys looked at them, there are 2 calculator, 4 non-calculator.
Wasn't it 3-3?
Yeah, it was 3.
It was, sorry, it's been changed. Just last year. So instead of 3 and 3, now it's 2 and 4. With the 2 and 4,
30 minutes?
you're going to get 30 minutes for the 2 and an hour for the 4. And here's the idea with that. That basically makes 15 minutes per FRQ. But some of them, just imagine, like for instance, I would think this one. Like just reading it takes more time than like reading any of the others, right? So you're going to have to not allow yourself to take more than 15 minutes on any one until you've tried the rest. That would be my advice. The nice thing is when you take the actual AP, it's going to be up on the basketball clock how many minutes you have left. So then you can kind of think, like when you're finishing the last portion of FRQs, you're going to have like an hour, right? And so that hour, think, okay, at 45, I need to at least have at 30, at 15, so that can kind of help you portion it out. You are allowed to have a good old-fashioned watch, and so you can set timers on it if you want, but don't have like an iWatch or an Apple Watch, sorry, that's out, and don't be doing that. You want all of that away. I know. It's dumb. However, quick word of advice, and we can talk about this for Saturday because we're talking about FRQs and grading. Here's how the actual FRQ portion will work, and I think it's not here, but it's in the actual exam itself if you read it in the directions. You get the first 2 FRQs. You actually get the entire FRQ, but you break the seal of the first 2, which are with your calculator. You have half an hour. That half an hour is up. That calculator goes away. But you don't turn those 2 FRQs in. You can do anything else you want on those FRQs, just you no longer have your calculator. But here's the struggle. What do you now have an hour to do? The other 4. So could you keep agonizing on this for a while longer? Yes. Or could you be like, let me get to these 4. Hey, let me get to these 4 FRQs, do the best I can on them, and then if I have extra time, go back and try to do whatever I can without my calculator. Yes. And remember, there's a lot you can do without your calculator. You can show what you would have done in your calculator. You can write an answer that's messy and gross. I wouldn't try solving a nasty integral by hand because it's very possible if it's a calculator problem, it's impossible to solve by hand. But you can write out work still and give explanations, units, those sorts of things. Tyler. Yes. It's exactly right. It's exactly the same as far as structure. They just have additional topics. Does that make sense? Okay. Austin, does that answer your question pretty good? Okay. And if you're thinking about the multiple choice, ooh, I should know this. I think it's actually roughly the same amount as like the points are worth. I think it's roughly 1.2 minutes per multiple choice question too. But I don't think it's really helpful to have that in mind and actually be timing yourself on every single multiple choice question. That's silly. But if you get to one where you've spent more than a minute or 2 on it, you stop. You stop. Maybe you star like which ones are your preferred answer choices so that if you don't have a lot of time, you come back. Or you pick one right then. That way if you run out of time, at least you're picking one of your preferred choices. And then you come back to that question if there's time at the end. But don't spend ever on multiple choice more than 2 minutes.
So do you get marked?
No. There is no penalty for getting something wrong. You don't get the points for it. There used to be a penalty, but then the last 5 years or so, they took away that penalty.
Thing it said,
In 2003, there was a penalty.
Oh, dang, you get a quarter off.
It's like the old way of SAT also, but they've changed the scoring just to be right or wrong. Yeah. Any questions on grading number 5? Do you guys see where a lot of points were?
The setup.
But we'll set up. Here's the sad thing. On this one, if you didn't separate the variables correctly, doesn't matter what you did. You got nothing.
Hey, I did separate.
If you did not separate correctly, doesn't mean, but if you didn't separate, you get nothing. This is, this is the dilemma. Yeah, this is the dilemma. This is the one where it's like, but I put a plus C. It doesn't matter if you don't separate. They're super hardcore about differential equations. Separate, then integrate. So make yourself a huge star, a huge note, because that is crucial. But that's literally just rearranging. which we've been practicing. Maybe we need to practice more, but rearranging, you have to rearrange first and then go. And then integrate, anti-derive, and solve. Yes, they just didn't put the integral sign. Their typical way is, hey, where did this come from? Oh, yay. I like signs because that tells you what to do. Have you guys do. But the nice thing is as long as you separate, you can get points for putting a plus C. You can put points for using the initial condition. Even if you don't get it right, you can get quite a few points. And some of these are worth 5, 8, 9 points. I haven't seen a 9, but I have seen an 8. Yeah. So, but the 8, 0 out of 8 if you didn't separate. That's why I'm almost positive that's why my 1BC kid who didn't get a 5 didn't get a 5. Because she came in and she was like, I didn't separate. I was like, no. Oh, kill me. Okay, FRQ 6, any questions?
Pretty simple thing to remember.
About grading? You would think, but time and time again. Okay, so we know how to grade the FRQs. Some of you guys still need to grade the FRQs. I'm actually going to do this, guys, for tomorrow. Let's go ahead and let me spot check tomorrow with your raw score. And that way, my people who were gone yesterday, you still have a chance to finish attempting and grading, right? And then you can go ahead and make sure that you have that raw score for me. So tomorrow, I'm going to pick up your practice exam from you like we did at the beginning of today. At the beginning of class tomorrow, you guys can work on answering each other's questions on the odds on the new packet. Is that cool? So you're going to do some group work on the odds on the group packet, or on the new packet, AP review number 3. And I'll spot check. Have the raw score ready, the number out of 108. Bye, guys.
I have like 20 million papers.
Get a folder. Yes.
The Friday you said I didn't grade the